Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is your boy, CIZZY, live action, Kansas City, Missouri, although we are in Overland Park, Kansas. And if you are new to the show, I'm going to let you know where we at. And if you're not new to the show, you already know. We at Leo Moreno Jr. Boxing Club, Overland Park, Kansas. If your grandson ain't got hands and he getting beat up at the park, Leo Moreno Jr. Boxing Club. Not telling them to fight or nothing, but sometimes you got to stand up for yourself. If you at the grocery store, you went to grab that kosher ground beef, and someone else snatched it out your hand, he was like, I just want to punch you, but you didn't know how to punch. Leo Moreno Jr. Boxing Club. I could keep going, but you know where to go if you need to develop the hand skills. And like I tell you guys every week, we are back at it again with another fire guest. I've yet to lie to you in over 170 plus episodes, baby. And with that being said, we are here to introduce. Talk to your camera, brother. Let them know who you at.
What's going on? My name is Caleb Adegoke. If you know me from wherever, the internet, probably more commonly known as Mookie, but professionally, Caleb Adegoke.
I love that. So Adegoke.
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 So Adegoke.
It's super easy until you try to say it fast.
Until you try to say it. But if you look at it and you say it that way,
you ain't lying.
It's exactly.
As soon as I looked at it,
it's exactly how you look at it.
That's
it's exactly
fire.
how you say it.
I love that. And let's actually start with the name, brother. Does the name have the last name?
Yeah.
Not the first name. But we can talk about the first name too. So
Sure.
Caleb, does the last name have a specific meaning? I was just sharing with you before we started the podcast that we are, African twins. The continent. We ain't from the same side of the continent, but my family being from Tanzania, yours from Nigeria. I know a lot of the last names and middle names and things like that typically have a connection to a community, a state of the country, all different things. And so I don't know if that's the case for you, but if so, please share.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually kind of in a unique case, even amongst Nigerians. My mom's from the north, my dad's from the south. They were going to school up north, so they met. And my dad married outside the tribe, and he was like, "I'm going to marry this woman." Yes. So I'm a bit of a unique case in that, like, when it comes to multicultural, I feel like I'm multicultural on every level. Mm-hmm. So the last name Adegoke actually stands for the crown that is exalted. That is a direct English translation. I'm sure there's a more local, colloquial version of it, but if you translate Adegoke in like word for word into English, it stands for the crown that is exalted. It is typically the first part, Ade, crown, is typically used to delineate some sort of royalty, lineage of royalty. I've never told this story on camera before, but my late grandfather on my dad's side actually spent the last third of his years as a king. Wow. So if you ever heard of a Nigerian prince, now you've officially met one. I'm not the one sending those emails, but it might be my cousin. So, if you need help figuring it out, let me know.
I
Kidding.
love that.
But yeah, no. So the name Adegoke comes from the Yoruba tribe. Mm-hmm. So from the southern part of the continent, or from the country where my dad is from. So took my dad's last name. So Caleb, the full name is Caleb Oluwadara Adegoke, which is a mouthful for real.
But I'm sure there's something special about every African culture and the names that they have in their communities, their tribes, their cities, their countries. Yeah. But living in America, there are specific African regions that most Americans or people that live in America are exposed to. Yeah. Being Nigerians, Kenyans, I would say. And then you might disagree with this, but the next two I'm going to say are Somalian and Ethiopians.
Oh, and I fully agree with that.
So I would think those are like the four that we're most exposed to.
Exactly.
Sure, you'll run into some random people from other places, but and I don't know if this is your case, but in my case specifically, my mom, she only hangs out with Africans. Yep. So she only hangs out with Africans my entire life, but there wasn't a lot of Tanzanians specifically, here, and she had her two friends that came to Tanzania, to America after she came here, and then came to Kansas City. So she has her crew, but over the years, the majority of her crew have been Congolese who were refugees in Tanzania or Kenya. So they grew up in the refugee camp for 20 to 30 years. So they're Tanzanian, but they're Congolese, but they are Tanzanian. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got you.
And so in my case, I would say like the fifth one would be Congolese, but that's just because of my specific familial situation. So who were like, outside of Nigerians, what was the largest population of like genre of Africans that you grew up or hung out around, whether it's in college or whether it was just for 2 years of your life, but chat about it.
Yeah, so it's actually very interesting as you say that, because like moving directly to Kansas City when we first moved here, immediately I was just like, oh, there's no black people, much less Africans. And my parents are Christian, and they belong to a community called African Christian Fellowship. And so they plugged in like immediately. So it was just like Wednesday you go to youth group, Saturdays ACF, Sundays church, you're there all day. But it was like for them a community that they like could belong to immediately. For me, it was like, these are your new best friends. And literally the people I met probably like, let's say September of 2002 are my best friends today. So it was a very eclectic group. It was mostly Nigerians for sure, because there's like 280 million of us in the country. There's like another 180 million of us just all over the place. Throw a dart at a map. Call somebody from there, there's a Nigerian there. So my best friends are Kenyan and Ghanaian.
I love it.
So like I really grew up around a pretty mixed group of Africans, to especially for Kansas City, and I attribute that to my parents getting connected to the spiritual life that they were connected to back home, and finding a community that supported that. And like, my best friends, shout out to Toby, shout out to Goddard, shout out to Manny. We're literally just at my boy's wedding in Atlanta, and oh man, talk about it, Nigerians.
Talk about Nigerians again, and talk about the Nigerian weddings out there go crazy, dumb,
different, but love it. Shout out to Nigeria advancing to the semifinals of the AFCON. So hopefully we can get.
Shout out to Tanzania for never making it past like round one ever.
we started bad too, so we'll get there.
Nigeria has always had somewhat of a name. Like you guys typically most of the time make it to the world, like to be able to enter the tournament for the World Cup. Tanzania, I don't think I can remember a day. I mean, I've only lived through like five times four, so five. So okay, maybe like 6 or 7 World Cups. I don't remember a time where Tanzania has been in there, and I might be wrong. Maybe in like 2004 or some shit, but I would remember. Let's just put it that way.
It's like I would have known.
I would know. Now I've been in Tanzania during the World Cup. By the way, have you been in Africa during the World Cup before?
I have not been in Africa.
I highly recommend that, especially considering most of the time you guys are in the tournament. I don't remember what year it was, but I think it was early 2010, so whatever that would have been. So 2026 is going to be 2022, 2018, 2014. So it must have been 2014 or somewhere in there, like the early 2000s, whatever World Cup was in the early 2010s is what I'm trying to say. I was in Tanzania, bruh.
Was it the one that was in South Africa, where the final was in South Africa?
I think it was.
My dad went to one of those games.
That's fire.
He said no matter what, for the rest of his life, his goal is to keep going to World Cup finals, because that was one of the best experiences he ever had. I'm
exactly.
Like, I appreciate it, Pops.
My sister's like, she said, I'm saving for 2026. She said, I'm trying to go to at least, even if it's not the greatest game, because who knows who we're gonna host. But it'll be exciting nonetheless. I'm excited for that to happen. I don't think I'll be attending any games, but I'm excited to see.
I mean, it's the World Cup and it's coming to Kansas City. You got to try. I mean,
you ain't lying. Oh no, I want to, but that ticket though, you know what I'm saying? I might
saving now.
I might have to be your cousin that's emailing. You dig what I'm saying? I'm playing, but nah. So I would love to chat about Kansas City and the African community here. Before I dive into that, though, I think it's really important to identify or to touch on the importance of those communities that your parents plugged into. Whether it's, most of the time it's going to be a religious community, which is perfectly fine. People don't understand how what is it, pivotal, role.
Yeah.
Those people play. As soon as you land, where the fuck do I get groceries from?
Yup.
Where do I get my haircut at?
Yep.
What should I expect for a haircut? How do I know if they're overcharging me? Oh, they're not allowed to just like randomly upcharge like back home. All right, cool. So like where do I buy a car? What should I expect for a car? Who's the best car repair person here? How do I get my kids in sports? What the hell is American football?
Yeah.
Like,
All that.
everything that you can imagine is being introduced, and like the easiest word to use is educated, or the education is provided by the community once you land.
Absolutely.
Not by the states.
Absolutely.
Sure, you do your little test or whatever so you can learn the language, prove you learn the language after a few years, take your test to get your official card and all that good stuff. But that's not where you learn about how it is to exist in America. You learn from your community that you plug into as soon as you land here.
Yeah, for sure.
And so shout out to, what was the name of the church again?
African Christian Fellowship. It's not a church. It's like more like a community organization.
I love that.
If you want some African food, every second Saturday, I'm gonna shoot you a text. Let you know,
start shooting me a text. Me and my lady African. She Ethiopian, I'm Tanzanian. So when we slide, you do what I'm saying? But if you're active in this part of the community, where are the best places for Africans to like kick it, party, eat in Kansas City?
I don't want to speak for one particular place because like then it's like favoritism. Like I'm always gonna go find some dope Nigerian food somewhere, anywhere. But I know there's a lot of Africans in Kansas City that will tell you that Kansas City has a really good Ethiopian food like vibe going on, really good relative. Like if you've never had Ethiopian food outside of Ethiopia, then it's really good. Still till today, the best tea I've ever had was at the Ethiopian airport. I was stuck. It was a layover.
In Addis.
Yep. Mm-hmm. You know it.
Yep.
It was a layover. I was there for like 4 hours. I was just walking around the airport just trying to stretch my legs. His grandma was like, son, what are you doing? I was like, I'm waiting, grandma. She was like, all right, come have tea. I was like, no, I'm good. She was like, come have tea. I said, all right.
Understood.
Sat down. She gone for 5 minutes, came back. It was just like two cubes of sugar, milk, tea, the best tea I've ever had in my life. Masoba is really good. Blue Nile is really good. As far as Nigerian spots, I'm also really biased. If I have Nigerian food at home, why would I go pay somebody else to go get it?
Fair.
That being said,
there
is a spot on Troost called Wagwan, and it's a Jamaican Nigerian spot. I will highly recommend them. Oxtail is fire over there.
I keep getting told by I'm a personal trainer here in Kansas City, and the gym that I train out of, the owner there's like, you went to Wagwan yet? Every time I see him, he's like, you went to Wagwan yet? I'm like, nah, because it's like right by us. I was like, nah, I ain't gone yet, so I definitely need to step foot.
Yeah, Wagwan's serious. The food over there is real good. I really truly have a problem paying for like Nigerian food, like West African food in general, because like my best friend's like Ghanaian. If I want Ghanaian food, I go to his mom's house. Like I call her auntie, I call her mama.
You know, that's a fair assessment. But you and I, at some point in the next few weeks, got to slide to, I think it's called Tea Tasty or something like that on Southwest Boulevard. I've driven past it like 74 times, and they're opening. The food looked good on the opening video, you know what I'm saying? So I see, I'm willing to try it out, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I went to one event there and it was rocking, so I was like, all right, I got to pull up, but I haven't been back. I haven't been to since. I know the place that I bump into the most Africans is wherever DJ Geo is.
Facts. Shout out Geo.
Shout out to the man Geo.
I'm sorry I ain't had you on the podcast yet, but Geo, I'm gonna have you on soon. But facts.
Yeah.
Wherever Geo go, I go.
If I'm hosting someone in town, or I'm just like, I don't know who, where, when, I'll be like, get on Instagram, check where Gio's DJing, and I shoot a text. You going? If I hear more than 2 yeses, I'm there. And then it's usually everybody else is there. So shout out to Gio for really cultivating like a scene for Africans to feel comfortable in spaces like as diverse as like Privy, Monarch, Aura. Those are three very, very different clubs. But if Gio's there, you're going to feel like you're at home. Yeah,
you definitely go see some Africans there if Gio's there. That's for sure. And the funny thing is, Gio is like, I feel like when you think about the music industry and creatives, like it feels as if they're popping, they're going to like kind of make it known that they're popping, if that makes sense. And Gio's like so humble. Gio's like a quiet kid that like you wouldn't even think is like outside. Yeah. But he outside.
He's all the way
curating outside. All these events. But you don't even like see him like he's not loud.
Yeah.
He's not loud with his success, his skill set.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And I attribute that to probably like being East African, because if Gio was Nigerian, trust me, you would know. Trust me, you would know.
I ain't saying nothing. I'm gonna just say that if you lived in LA and been to them Afro events, I would agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. But like Gio is like genuinely a good human being. That's one of the reasons I go to his events to support him. It's because you just got to support the culture, support the vibes. There ain't that many of us over here, regardless of how many of us there are over here. It ain't that many comparatively.
Exactly.
So when I go to events and I feel welcome and I can feel at home and I can feel like, all right, cool, he's gonna throw on some Omar Piano, some Burna Boy, Wizkid, DeVito, all the jams. Thames comes on, I'm in the club singing like, hey.
Hey, look, where's she from? I think she's from South Africa. Where's Tyler from?
South Africa.
I'm gonna say this. Never mind, I ain't gonna say
I know what you're gonna say, but you ain't gotta say it. But yeah.
And I may be out of pocket for thinking what I'm saying, but I confirmed yesterday that technically I'm not out of pocket, but I'm still out of pocket. But I'm gonna go ahead and leave that to be. Now let's get into to why we're really here, which is you, my brother. Sure. So you are a licensed professional counselor in Midtown Kansas City, or in Kansas City in general. Maybe you moved from that part of town.
For sure.
But double down on that. Where'd you go to school? Like, how'd you get into this field? What inspired you to get into this field? And I guess where you're at today. So just however you want to summarize that.
Yeah. So I got into therapy and counseling by accident. As you can imagine, as you said, when you leave Africa and leave everything and everyone you know and you come over, you got to start fresh. It is a wild place. And so, like, I was thankfully plugged into the community, but it didn't make the transition any less rough. In addition to that, I had quite a traumatic health event. I was born with sickle cell anemia. If you don't know what that is, that's an autoimmune disease that you get at birth. And particularly in Africa, especially in Nigeria, it's kind of being born with a death sentence. A group of people born with sickle cell, let's say like there's 100 of them, you're going to lose probably 25 of them that first 5 years. And then a group of them are going to make it. You kind of lose them right in that puberty stage. And then some of them make it to like 25. You lose another group of them. If you made it to 40, you made it. Like, salam alaikum, congratulations. You lived a good life with sickle cell. And so I was born with sickle cell in Nigeria, and my parents and my grandparents and my whole village, tribe, community kind of did everything they could to support me. And then coming here, it was around 2006, I started to have health issues. So I started to have health issues to the point where I'll never forget this. I was at Children's Mercy downtown. My doctor was Dr. Woods. Shout out to Dr. Woods. His son had sickle cell. I had gone through so many complications. There's health problems after health problems after health problems. I remember him walking into the room and, he was doing his rounds, and I'd been in the hospital like probably 6 or 4 times that first half of the year. And he does his rounds, comforts me. My dad's reading his paper. I remember him just like putting his hands behind his back and like leaning against the wall. And it goes, Jimmy, if we don't do something soon, this boy's going to die. And my dad, I'll never forget this. I don't even know if he remembers this. He was calm. He said, okay, so what are our options? And I was just like, all right, we're doing this. Long story short-ish, I moved to Atlanta for a year, stayed with my uncle, and went through a bone marrow transplant.
This is when you were 15.
This was when I was 15. I was going through 3 rounds of chemo, 3 rounds of radiation. I actually wasn't always this dark, but chemo radiation makes your skin dark. My hair fell off, so I was like, I got to do the Rick Ross now. So bald head, grew a beard out when I finished that transplant. And I'm one of the lucky ones. My transplant went extremely smooth. I was a very rare case of someone that age. Matter of fact, I have a plaque at home that I look at every year that I was awarded for being part of a study about sickle cell. And so that kind of changed the trajectory of my life. I was trying to figure out where I was. And then after having to go to Atlanta for a year, like I came back and all my friends that I kind of had in 5th, 6th, 7th grade were already a year ahead of me. Mm-hmm. So like I come back after repeat my freshman year. I don't even get to be in school full time. So I'm half in, half out.
And all of that completely resets your social connections.
Social clock
dilemmas.
is literally like a year behind. Everybody's advanced. My best friend Toby moved from Kansas City to Minnesota. So it's just like, all right, I don't know what's happening here. In that, because I was in Atlanta for a year, like ACF was still a thing. So I was connected to ACF in Atlanta, but it was like, that's a different group of people. But like the support was still kind of was still there. Like I was always getting calls and, hey, we're praying for you. We're hoping you're well. Can't wait for you to come back. So I come back to Kansas City. I'm trying to integrate myself back into school, and it's rough, dog. Like I don't know anybody. I look different. I feel different. I'm not the same person. I'm still having health issues, but not as bad as they used to be before. And I started to get into trouble, started rolling with the wrong crowd, even though, like, give credit to the boys I was rolling with, like, they always saw me as like, hey, you smart. Why you hanging with us? I'm like, you guys are the only group of people who accepted me for who I was. But when things started to get dangerous, moms and pops, like, they're like, all right, we're going to ship you back to Africa. And my aunt and uncle were like, don't do that. This boy's he's not going to survive if you do that.
They said, no.
No, my aunt and uncle literally like sat my dad down like, yeah, no, he can't. If he send him back to Africa, he's not going to make it. So they shipped me off to Grandview, Missouri, where I basically lived with my best friend, Goddard Ogutu, the Kenyan family, every summer, almost every summer.
Quick pause. So I know Matthew.
That's my boy.
Matthew is actually on episode 6 or 7 of this podcast.
Show. Yeah. Matthew's basically my little brother.
Kind of 6 or 7. But okay, yeah. So same family?
Same family.
Because I haven't heard of Goddard before. That's why. I just know
I
know the younger brother and I know Matthew. That's it.
Goddard's the oldest. Mm-hmm. Matthew, Tim, James, and Benji.
Okay, gotcha. Keep going.
Like that is my second family. I literally like
Kenyans, by the way, which at the beginning of the podcast we were talking about, cross-cultural connections. So shout out to my good Kenyan brothers.
Yeah, no, that family basically took me in to help raise me, and I kind of got back on the right path, and I was like, all right, cool, got to go figure it out. And if you know anything about Africans, if you know anything about Nigerians, it's basically 3 acceptable paths. You're going to be a doctor, going to be a lawyer, going to be an engineer. Garbage at math, super trash at math. If it's not video game math, it doesn't work. And I'm barely good at video game math. I'm good at video games, but the math that goes on.
I ain't good at math, and I'm definitely not good at girl math, and I'm definitely
all the girl math, boy math, English math, all the math. I'm garbage at all the math. And I was like, all right, cool, maybe medicine. I took all the anatomy classes. Couldn't do chemistry to save my life, so I'm like, oh, well, medicine's out. So what am I going to do? I'm going to be a lawyer. And I started on that path, and I was going to KU at the time. I did my freshman year at KU. And in the midst of that, I basically fell apart without really knowing I was falling apart, because I grew up to where, like, if you have problems, just pray about it. And like, for the most part, that really helped. But I never really got to actually deal with my problems. So what I later would now realize is that, like, I had fallen into a deep depression. And I tried to solve it with everything under the sun. Thankfully, I didn't get too far into anything, and it was never held captive by too many things. So after a year of really just messing around, I got a letter from KU saying, your GPA is trash. Don't come back. Take a year off, figure your life out. My dad called me from South Africa, was like, I'm not paying for you to go back to that school until you figure yourself out now. I initially wanted to go to Johnson County Community College. My dad was like, no son of mine is going to go to a junior college because he's a professor at I'm going to put his business out there. He knows the story.
Either way, he's a professor.
He's a professor.
I got you, Dad. I got you.
He was a professor at UMKC at the time. So he was like, no son of mine is going to go to a junior college. What are you going to do, get an associate's? And that's exactly what I did. And I'll never forget the first day of signing up for classes. They were like, hey, you just need some gen eds. Get it out the way. I was like, I bet. Gen eds, easy A's, get my GPA up, run it up, go back to the pretty white girls at KU and call it a good day. I walked into my psychology 101 class, and Dr. Ryan Darrow.
Sorry. I was just catching up. Because you ain't lying.
All
right, go ahead. Sorry.
LFK for a reason.
Yes.
I walked into my psychology 101 class, and Dr. Ryan Darrow was standing at the front of the class, and dude was just a goofball. And I'm like, this dude's a professor for real? Because he was just like almost like messing with us. Like the class was easy, But like, it wasn't easy because the content wasn't hard. It was easy because he made it easy. He made it into where we can understand it. Through the whole process of that class, I just kept clicking with everything. It came easy to me. I don't know how to explain it other than like, it just made sense. And at the end of that first class, I walked up to him. I was like, hey, so what is it that you do? It was like, well, I'm a professor, but like my job is I'm a pastor and I'm a therapist. I'm like, okay, the pastor makes sense because it felt like you were preaching, but you were teaching us. And I was like, all right, tell me about this therapist thing. What does it mean to be a therapist? And he just became my mentor. And through that process, I basically took every psych class I could at JUCO. And I was never the smartest kid, but I was also never the dumbest kid. I just didn't try hard because I had ADHD, and Africans don't believe in ADHD or medication. So they were just like, no, try harder. I was like, I'm trying. It's not working. Aced every single psych class I ever took. Aced. And I was like, all right, cool. I found something that I'm good at, and you can actually make decent money doing it. Since that day, I walked home. I'll never forget it. I like sat my dad down. I was like, hey, I'm not going to go to law school. He goes, huh? What are you going to do? I was like, I'm going to become a therapist. He goes, you mean you want to take out $80,000 in loans to make $30,000 as a social worker? And I was like, no, I'm going to become a therapist. I mean, my dad fought about it, but he was like, hey, you do what you want. I was like, this is what I'm doing. Literally switched over from liberal arts to like sciences, and I've been on the mental health path ever since. So I recently graduated from Mid-American Nazarene with my master's.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it. Graduated 2022 with my master's in mental health from Mid-American Nazarene, and I started my private practice the very next week.
Another congratulations.
I appreciate it. And I'll be 2 years into my private practice May of this year. And so the process looks like you go to school, you get your master's, start getting your licensing. We go through a process similar to what doctors do in residency, but it's only 2 years, called supervision. So I have two supervisors that basically checking my work and making sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing legally for my clients.
Hence the pre-license.
The pre-license, exactly.
Gotcha.
So once I finish my licensing, I'll be a licensed professional counselor. And then I recently made the decision to go get my doctorate, so I'll be back in school soon.
Wow, I love that. Now, I do want to dive into that. There's so many questions I have, and at the end of the day, we're not going to get to them all. So I got to accept that early on for myself mentally. But why are you making the decision to extend school? Is it because of the passion and love you have for learning more about this space? And kind of like you were saying, you're just like, wow, all these classes just hit for me in this lane.
Yeah.
And I really connected with it, and I found it interesting. And so is it like, I just want to engulf more information about this, or is it a business professional decision? Why? Hey, I always ask why, because I fucking hate school. Yeah. So for me, it's like mind blowing that somebody would want to go back.
Yeah. So I'm not a school person at all. I would say I'm definitely someone who loves to learn. But yeah, I have ADHD, and I think I honestly have undiagnosed dyslexia. So school is not easy for me. Even though I aced all my psych classes, shit was hard. But I cared about school for the first time in a long time, maybe ever.
Because you cared about what you were studying.
I cared about what I was studying. And there were nights, I remember there was one night I was writing a paper. We prayed at Mama Julie's house at 10 o'clock. She went to bed. Everybody went to bed. She woke up at 5:30 son, are you still on the couch? I was like, yeah, Mama, I got to finish this paper. She was like, huh? She's like, you didn't sleep, did you? I was like, no. She's like, why? I was like, I got to get this paper done. Got 109% on that paper. I've never been more proud of a paper in my entire life. I suffered. But the reason I would say I'm going for it is kind of threefold. There is something, I don't know what it is about Nigerians. There is just something that about if we're going to do something, we're going to try and do it the best. I think it probably comes just out of the survival nature that the country embeds in you. I literally think it's in our DNA. I've hardly, I don't even want to say I've never, I probably have and it just doesn't register, but every Nigerian I've met is not a lazy person.
Same. I've never met a lazy Nigerian.
They go for the absolute best that they possibly can. And that confidence is somewhere in me. And I think because I struggled in so many places and in so many different aspects of life, when I found something that I was good at, I'm like, all right, cool, knock it out. This is what we're going to do. So I never wanted to get a doctorate. I was like, that's my dad's thing. He's Dr. Adegoke. I'm just going to go be a therapist, have fun, live my life. But there's always this hunger for more. That's 1/3 of the equation. The other third of the equation is if you look at the percentages of mental health clinicians that are Black and men in this country, it is staggeringly low compared to the need. According to, I think it's the labor, I was looking at the site yesterday. I can text you the official website so you can properly cite it. I think it's like Department of Labor Statistics. Of all the psychiatrists in this country, 4% are Black men. 6% are counselors. And then within the counselors, they kind of break it out. So 6% are mental health counselors. 3% are marriage and family therapists. 26% are social workers. So of all the mental health field, the greatest percentage of Black men exist in social work. The rest are like majority white women. Mm-hmm. Not saying that that's a bad thing, but I'm saying if I'm going to do this, I want to do it to the best of my ability. And so I've kind of looked and surveyed the landscape, and I said, okay, I've had success in this area. What can I do next? What's the next mountain to climb? And so for me, the next mountain to climb is kind of getting my doctorate and kind of being able to catapult Black men's mental health, at least for me. I don't know what it does for the other people. I just want to be able to say, I have all the tools available to me and no one's telling me yes or no about who I can see, how I can see them, and what I could do. So I'm going to go get my doctorate so I can be accessible to as many men as possible. And then, Black men, African men.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I think what really speaks out to me is the fact that I think you're setting the standard in doing that too. So you remember how at the beginning of this podcast, and the focus of this podcast is being a source of representation for the people who are coming behind you, right?
Yeah.
So when you share statistics like that and people listen to this podcast over the next 5, 10, 15 years, there's going to be somebody that listens that goes through a situation that and realizes my path of service to humanity, my path of service to my people, my path of service to my brothers is going to be through counseling and through therapy and through understanding human psychology. And they're going to go and they're going to be like, you know what? I'll just go this route because it seems easiest. But then they're going to listen to the podcast and they'll be like, damn, he set the standard. You know what I'm saying? And so then it's like, all right, if I really want to be a force in this industry, I have to do everything that is in my power to like set that standard and let it be known. Like, all right, like you said, nobody can tell me yes or no, and I have all the tools available to me to provide to the individuals who need it most. So I shout you out, I commend you for taking it another step. And I'm sure once you complete that step, you're going to take it another step in a way that we don't necessarily understand what that'll be yet.
Yeah.
But I just can see that already, not only in you, but also in the Nigerian. Do you feel me? Do you feel?
I appreciate it. I don't know the carry last, dude. No, the carry last at all.
I love it. So the next question I wanted to ask you is, on your website, you have a Carl Rogers quote. Do you remember what that quote is?
I don't remember it, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
What quotes in your life have been, and it may be the Carl Rogers quote, it may be other quotes that come to mind, but what quotes in your life, and it doesn't even have to be a quote, but books, quotes, words, phrases, speak volumes to you when it comes to, hey, I'm in a time of distress, I'm in a time of struggle, I'm in a time of my willpower is really low. What quotes come to mind? What phrases like really put a shot in you and get that adrenaline pumping so you back outside?
Yeah. So
shout out Carl Rogers, RIP as well.
Yeah. Shout out Carl Rogers, Rogerian therapist through and through. I think for me, I want to quote, there's probably 4 quotes that really stick to mind that, like, if you put all 4 quotes in a box, they kind of encapsulate and explain who Caleb and Mookie and all my other personas in a really well well-mannered way. My grandfather on my mom's side, Jonathan and Doggy, helped raise me. And one of the things that my grandfather always used to say is, hard work never killed anybody, but laziness did. And I was just like, really? Because hard work has killed people. Like, people working in mines, they're working hard. And he goes, nope, that's not hard work. That's dangerous work. I'm not telling you to work dangerous work. I'm telling you to work hard. 'Cause hard work never killed anybody, but laziness did. I was like, all right. This was probably post my transplant. I was like 16 or 17. Pops was dropping me off. He had this like 2005 Jag. It was like mint green. Thing was nuts. So he was dropping me off at school one morning, and we're listening to like Hot 103 Jams. And I think Steve Harvey was talking about entrepreneurship. And my pops was talking to me, and my pops is at this point in his career killing it on a rocket ship on the way to the top. And he has arrived at the top of his field. Like, real talk, in his field, nobody's seeing him. He's that
Salute, professor.
Yeah, he's that dude. I didn't really know it until the one day we were making jokes in Manny's kitchen. Like, he probably has a Wikipedia page. Nigga has a Wikipedia page. Like, my dad has a Wikipedia page.
My man Googled him.
That's crazy.
That's funny.
But we were.
Y'all ever Googled your pops?
Yeah, see what pop up. I'm always terrified. Like, one of these days I'm gonna have kids. They're gonna pull up.
I got
internet.
so many ignorant jokes I want to make right now, but we're gonna keep it.
Yeah, I know. I was like, my kids are gonna find my MySpace, and I'm in trouble. I gotta explain who Soulja Boy was.
Oh no.
No, we were in that car ride. He was dropping me off, and I think Steve Harvey was talking about entrepreneurship. And my dad really just like emphasized, again, hard work, but like smart work. And he said, in this country, this is the only country in the world where you aren't like fully pigeonholed. Racism aside, socialism aside, all that other shit aside. In America, if you come here and work hard, you'll make something of yourself.
1,000.
And he said, then he followed up with it. In this country, if you work hard, you work for somebody else, you may end up rich. You'll probably be successful and be rich. If you work for yourself, you'll probably be wealthy. And the wealthy people sign the rich people's paychecks. Shaq said that quote. The one that's most recently been kind of the battery in my backpack is from...
I want to pause you right there, because I think sometimes, just in the name of the podcast, I think sometimes people think about wealthy or very well-off people, and they think power trip. They think desire for power. Power can be a good thing. You just said something that I think a lot of people that might be lower down on the totem pole, not as a human being, but from a monetary perspective or career success perspective, look at the person signing the paychecks as a negative person.
Yeah.
If you want to be of service in this life, and one of your ways of being of service is to build a company that provides a valuable enough service that you need to hire people to make that service spread wider and be able to help people better.
Absolutely.
And now you're able to feed this family and this family. Yes, they're feeding the family because they're doing the hard work. You're providing the avenue, the vehicle for them to be able to feed their
100%.
family. That is a blessing.
Yeah.
It is stressful.
Yeah.
But it is blessing.
100%.
And I just wanted to shout that out real quick, because, sometimes people will take quotes and just be like, man, that's just for people who have ego, like the wealthy people sign the rich people's checks. But that doesn't have to be a bad thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
These rich people are going out there and selling, hopefully, products that are good for people. They're getting people in the right homes, if it's real estate or it's this and that. We could go down a long line, but I just want to say, being able to sign somebody's paycheck and provide them a vehicle to be able to provide a living for their family,
absolutely,
is a blessing. Continue.
Yeah, for sure. And to really encapsulate that, if you really feel like the rich people are doing something wrong, all right, cool. Go fix the problem, then you get to sign the paychecks. Like, if you really, truly, and I fully believe this to my core, if you really believe the people out here are with the money are messing up or doing something wrong, all right, you go fix it. And that's not saying like a condescending thing. It's I'm truly mean like, it needs to be fixed. It's not my job to fix it. I got my role already. If you feel that way, get up and fix it. We need you to fix it. So go fix it.
We need you to fix it. So go fix. Man, look, You lick that camera, I'm gonna lick this camera. We need you to fix it, so go fix it.
Yeah. And then, so my godfather, my adopted godfather, I like to call him Ken McElhaney. Shout out to you, Ken. Ken McElhaney says a lot of old Southern sayings. But one of the things that he said to me when he was mentoring me was, Caleb, do things above reproach in a way that your enemies will defend you. And I said, dog, that's crazy.
Say it again.
Do things in a way that you are so above reproach that your enemies will defend you. And then he went and told a story about how everyone in his area knew him for being a man of integrity. And when somebody from out of town came to slander him, even the other agents, the other people who were selling against him were like, that's not Ken McElhaney. Don't do that. We don't know who you are. We know him. You don't get to do that. And then the last one, I think, is really kind of stuck in my mind. Shout out to Black History Month. Shout out to all the Black creatives, all the Black people, all the Black leaders who's allowed you and I to be able to sit in this gym in Overland Park, Kansas, and do a podcast freely.
And publish it. Without being in danger.
And make bread from it one day, hopefully.
Yes.
Is a Malcolm X quote. And it was an interview where this was, unfortunately, shortly before his assassination, where he was asked if he's scared. And he goes, I have no worry. I live like a man who died 20 years ago. I have no fear or worry about no man or any problem. And that has been the quote for the last year that's kind of been like, every time I feel down, every time I'm out of my element, it's like, there's a specific song that has it. It's a song by Skepta, another Nigerian.
Shout out Skepta.
Shout out Skepta.
Shout out to Gigs.
Shout out Gigs. Shout out JME.
Come on.
Shout out to the UK. Shout out drill music, garage music, all
Shout
of it.
out Stormzy.
Stormzy, the Ghanaian god.
Come on.
The man them, you know. So Skepta put it in front of a song, and I just listened to that song, and it just puts a battery in my backpack every time. Because truly, like, to live like you are a man who's died already means you have no fear of anything. Now, I'm as a therapist, I recognize that could come as reckless. No, the way I see it is that I see my fear, I see the things that make me scared, but I don't let them stop me. I'm aware of my fears. I'm aware of my limitations. I just don't let them stop me. At 15, I laid on a hospital bed and knocked on death's door, and the Grim Reaper answered, and I somehow made it out. At some point, he's going to come back, and I'm not going to win the second time. So while I got here and what time I have left, is go mode.
I'm going to just dap you up. I'm going to just dap you up there. I'm going to just dap you up. I love that.
Yeah.
There's two more topics I want to touch on before we wrap it up. Normally, I keep a nice little timer on me so I can make sure I'm on time. Matter of fact, Mark, where we at on the time? Okay, say less. Good. That gives me some good time. I was feeling a little rushed in my heart. Sure. All right, so you said something earlier. You were saying these quotes kind of encapsulate all the different personas, whether it's, you said Mookie is the nickname.
Yeah.
Mookie, Caleb, and whatever other personas. What is your thoughts on having different personas or different, I know there's a word for it, but you know how Kobe has his Mamba mentality.
Yeah.
And he talks about that a lot of times where he goes from being with his kids, but then he has to get in that, that mindset.
That mindset, yeah.
And when we think about, I forgot the actor's name, something Guzman, I think, but who played the Joker in the most recent one that had come out a few years ago, and he talked about how he had to get in that.
Joaquin Phoenix?
That's what I was trying to say, my bad. But yes, so he was talking about in that role having to switch his whole entire character, and it got dangerous at some point because he was really in there. Talk to me about who are those. Who is Caleb? Who is Mookie? And then, like, also, what is the importance to you in having? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. So we all have different parts of ourselves that exist inside of us. It's actually a form of therapy that I use to help just people figure out life. It's called IFS, Internal Family Systems. We have this internal system of different like parts, and they play different roles. So for me, Caleb was a really complex person. Caleb lived in Africa for 10 years and has lived in Kansas City for 20 something years. So like there are parts of Caleb that are like you cannot remove the Nigerian out of Caleb. Mookie has never lived. Mookie was born here. Mookie was born in Lawrence, Halloween. Shout out to my boy Barisa Gemda. That's how I got that name. I don't remember how I got that name, but he's been calling me Mookie ever since. And like, there are people in Lawrence, Kansas who still don't know my real name is Caleb. So like, Mookie is a whole new identity that allowed me to kind of put some of like the things that I felt were difficult to process until I had the proper tools in their place. And it's both helpful and like a freeing aspect of me. I think the thing we need to understand about our parts is that they usually have an unmet need or an unhealed wound. And so when our parts start to come up and ask questions, and like somebody may say something and like it takes you completely out of character, there's a part of you in there that's being activated by something someone is saying or something someone's doing. It may be someone you care about, you love, and they say one thing wrong and it just takes you back to when you were 7 on the baseball field and somebody called you something and just pisses you off. That part of you is just asking to be seen. So Caleb, Mookie, and all the other parts of myself are asking to be seen. So for me, what I had to do was sit down with myself through therapy, through counseling, through prayer, through meditation, through conversations with my friends, and learn what those parts of myself were asking for. And then I was able to really tap into those parts. There's points where like Mookie is the person to be in the room because Mookie is more fun. He's pop out, dap everybody, shake hands, wear the babushka, throw the glasses on in the club, and have a good old time. That's maybe not the best place for Caleb, but Mookie's having a good time. And then there's times where Mookie's need to sit down and Caleb needs to come do a podcast. There's times where ideal Caleb has to come out and he's a whole different ballgame. Like, and there's times where I actually have to like tell ideal Caleb, you know what? It's okay to be actually 6-year-old Caleb. Like, it's okay to like, you don't have to wear the Ashgrave Armani suit with the Tom Ford slip-ons, wearing the Tuscan leather, driving. I'm telling you, the ideal version of Caleb is a version of myself that I had created because my entire life I was expecting to die by the time I was 18. Then my 18th birthday rolled around and all of a sudden I could live to be 100. Dog, what am I going to do? So I created this ideal version of myself in my head, and he is the most confident version of Caleb. He's the most confident version of me. If ideal Caleb walks in any room, you know he's there. And there's times where I need to tap into that. But most of the time, I'm actually having to tell him to calm down. Like, it's okay to be vulnerable. You don't have to be the sharpest, smartest, loudest person in the room.
Yeah.
You can just be you.
I love that. You said, you never expected to make it to 18. And so when you did, you were like, fuck, what am I going to do with the rest of my life?
Facts.
I just want to point out that I think that, especially, but unfortunately, for our young Black American boys, where they're growing up, and people, especially when they hit like that age 10 or 11 and they are like starting to understand shit, they really don't think they're going to make it past 17, 18, right here in our own city, and cities all over America. And when they do make it to 18, to 19, to 20 to 21,
it's uncharted territory.
It's uncharted territory, which is both amazing and room for a shit ton of opportunity and stepping in to a new version of you.
Yeah.
But it's also another path that you can step into that may not lead you to maybe physical danger, but can lead to a very tough place up here and in here that you don't step into who you could have become.
Been. Yeah.
You don't impact the people you could have impacted.
Yeah.
So I think that in your line of work and any other podcast you do and any other men you help or any audiences you target in your Facebook post or whatever, I want you to consider that there's a lot of 18-year-old boys that hit 18 that didn't know that they were going to hit 18 and don't know what the fuck to do.
Yeah.
I think you have an experience in that lane that I'm sure you might already know, but just wanted to acknowledge that there's some power in that.
Yeah, I want to say I greatly appreciate that, because that ends up being my cross to bear. I think about that almost every time I meet with a client. I'm like, I'm just a vessel through which change gets to happen. So I want to learn their story and be a safe place for them to process whatever they need to process, so they can go on their own journey and bear their crosses. But more often than not, when I meet with Black men in my practice, that's one of the biggest things, is like, nobody showed me love. No one told me they loved me. The first time somebody told me they loved me, it was like Bill Cosby or Uncle Phil. Like, they didn't hear this from the people in their lives. They didn't hear this from their, and like when we tell stories about, like, yeah, we know people personally who never expected to make it to 18. When I tell this to my Japanese friends, my Spanish friends, my friends from London, they're like, huh?
Yep.
I'm like,
Yep.
yeah, there are people who don't expect it to make it to 18, because it's not real. Like, reality for them is like, anybody who made it from 18 is either struggling or abandoned them. So they know what it is till 18, and then everything after 18 is a wild land. And so I do think there's a lot of opportunity for our generation, millennials, the generation for us, to really kind of set up a structure for healing and training and empowerment for the younger generation. And honestly, shout out to the younger generation. Those Gen Z kids, they're like, no, I'm going to therapy. I'm going to go work out. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to figure my life out, because I can't keep doing what they've been doing. So shout out to the younger generation for like championing like that there needs to be a change.
And that's the last thing I want to talk about today. I think a lot of people would say that this new generation is soft and stepping into their soft Drake boy era, right? One of my favorite leaders in the wellness space, his name is Joe Holder, and he tweeted something the other day talking about like in order to be as masculine as you want to be, you need to have that softness, be able to tap into your softness to really be that, go yay, achieve everything, dominate. That softness can be a tool. So I'll say that, and then I'll also say I want to talk about the power of suffering and understanding, I guess, maybe the different types of suffering. I don't know if they're, because I'm all, and this is, not to put our information out there. If you actually listen to this podcast, babe, I'm sorry. But like one thing, she liked to keep it in private. But one thing for me and her that's been a challenge is I'm very like, you have to suffer. You have to work hard. You can't rest. Like, I mean, you can rest because I'm in wellness, so I talk about the importance of rest all the time. But you have to work hard. You have to experience adversity. You have to expect that every day, that like you gonna get hit with the rocks. Like they gonna stone your ass, and you got to be able to catch a few, take a few, and keep going and look at each stone as like just a little gratitude stone. Like, thank you for that pain. It's motivation. So you being a professional that might understand this or be able to communicate it a little bit better, is suffering necessary? And I know we can't talk all about this in 5 minutes, but I feel like there's so much more I want to say. I'm going to shut up and let you go run with what I said.
I appreciate you sharing that, being vulnerable and honest. And here's where I come from. I don't disagree with you, but where I will challenge you is that I don't think you need to suffer. I think suffering is inescapable. I think it's a natural part of life. And as long as you continue to live life, like, suffering will be part of the process. But here's where I want to challenge you. It's like, you don't need to suffer. You need to process the suffering and use it in a way that is beneficial to you. Again, that comes with a very heavy caveat of like suffering. Like, suffering is dangerous work. And as I already said, like, hard work doesn't kill people. Dangerous work does. Like, suffering can be hard. Suffering can break you. It can destroy you. So like, I actually want to tell men, and I want to look at the camera and say this. I want to tell men to stop wearing suffering and trauma as a badge of honor. Healing, growth, development, change, that is actually hard work. That is the badge of honor you should carry. Let the suffering sit on the shelf. Let the healing and the growth and the change that is coming from said suffering, be the badge that you wear out into the world. That's what I'll say to that.
I love that. I love that. There's 3,000 more questions I have for you today, but I think we were able to touch on a lot of topics, especially some impactful conversation in the past 50 minutes. So we'll definitely have to have you on for a part 2. But before we wrap up today, I want to ask you the final question we ask every guest, which is, it's your last day on earth. You have lived to 120 years old. You've been able to have all the fufu that you want. You were able to serve the world and really impact thousands and thousands of black men. And you were able to create and build everything you wanted, right?
Mm-hmm.
But your great-great-grandchildren are sitting at your feet, and they're looking up at you. And you're sitting in a chair just like this. You're looking down at them. They're crisscross applesauce, a whole bunch of beautiful, little 5-year-old great-great-grandchildren. And they say, great-great-grandpa, what's one piece of advice on how to live a good life? There's no book. There's no documentary of you. This is the last thing you're leaving for them. What are you going to tell them? One piece of advice on how to live a good life.
Yeah. If I'm to leave one piece of advice on how to live a good life, it's to love unapologetically.
What does that mean?
So love unapologetically means that you love yourself and you love others unapologetically. Don't hide from your emotions. Don't run from your emotions. Tell people how you feel. Be honest. Be forthcoming. Be forthright. Do things in a way where your enemies will defend you. Work hard. But most importantly, love unapologetically.
I love that. Ladies and gentlemen, you can follow him and find him at
Adegoke. Well, let me back it up. It's CalebAdegoke.com. You can find me on my website, or you can email me at Caleb@AdegokeCounseling.com. Follow me on Twitter, or I'm not on Twitter. I'm on Instagram at Adegoke Counseling. Those are the places to find me.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you coming on.
Appreciate you having me.
You already know the vibes, ladies and gentlemen. Leave a 5-star review, as that is the only way we can grow. Press the subscribe button on YouTube. That is the only way we can grow. Leave comments. And if you guys leave quality comments with questions and thoughts, then it'll give us a great reason to bring Mr. Caleb back on the show to discuss some of the comment section. So please comment.
Like, comment, subscribe. Bow.